Inculcating values in children. Brother Muldowney of St. George's once asked me, when a little child comes to us for admission into the school, they come like little angels, and when they go out after 14 years of education, they go out as little devils. We need to ask ourselves, what are we doing? Excellent education without values would result in producing world-class criminals. The purpose of education is to evolve the child into a happy, healthy, productive citizen. And for a developing country, perhaps productivity, the ability to earn a living, becomes more important than happiness, and sometimes at the cost of health. At the same time, citizenship cannot be ignored. That has to have the top priority. I was reading a book by James Hadley Chase, and it starts by saying, the world would have been a much happier place if Mr. Colt had done his research on safety pins rather than revolvers. Of course, we want our children to be happy, achieving, innovating, making things happen, creating a better world, a saner society through science, through technology, and we must teach them subjects English, Hindi, maths, philosophy, art, literature. But we also must understand that all science is value neutral. It can be used for positive purposes and negative purposes. The gun does not know the discretion. It is the person behind the gun who has to use his or her judgment and discretion. So, our children must then be taught science, be taught liberal arts, but with values, grounded in values. We often consider education as the process of sharpening the brain, training the child to solve unsolved problems, in the fond belief that this will result in a better world, in a happier society, in a greener planet. But we must teach them inquisitiveness, we must teach them compassion, we must teach them to become a good human being. Children learn from the environment, they learn from their parents, they learn from their relatives and friends, they learn from media, social media. And it is unfortunate that with all the advantages of social media, we also have violence, we also have jealousy, and above all we have pornography. And fortunately, unfortunately, it has entered the bedrooms. Children live on social media, they live in a virtual world. Parents feel helpless, and parents have a limitation. Parents have a big limitation of love, and love sometimes resulting in covering up of all that the child is doing wrong. They have a blind spot. Friends, relatives are often not telling the child what is going wrong. And if they do not tell them that, if you do not point out the mistakes, it means you have no more interest in them. And that is where teachers have a huge responsibility. We, the teachers, have to inculcate the values in children. If we do not do that, we are chugging away from our core responsibility. I often ask teachers, and I have asked hundreds of teachers, what are you paid for? And I often hear answers like, I teach English, I am paid for teaching maths, I am paid for teaching science. And then I ask them, who teaches the child? Is your job to transact the subject, or is your job to teach and train the child? We cannot shrug our responsibility. At the same time, values cannot be taught. The world of psychology has not yet answered the question, and perhaps it will stay as it is, whether values are genetic in nature or do they come from socialization. Nature versus nurture continues to be a big debate. Perhaps it is supposed to be so. There are philosophies, but we really cannot answer this question in its totality. The first requirement of a teacher is to be liked by the child. Children do not learn from people they do not like, as Rita Pearson says. The child typically goes through 3 stages. The first stage is a stage of imitation. They copy everything. The second stage is a stage where they attempt to emulate the attitude, behavior patterns of people they like, people they idolize. I am what I am today because of my teachers, and I consider myself extremely fortunate to have been taught in my schooling by some world class teachers, not because they were brilliant in their subjects, but because they loved us, because they went out of their way to ensure that we are on the right path, and that is the primary role of the teacher. There cannot be a subject called values, because as I said, values cannot be taught, they can be caught, and children catch them from the people whom they idolize. The third stage of evolution of a child's mind is questioning, and they need to understand, they need to be explained why are we schooling them, why are we teaching them, why maths, why science, and they must understand that the relationship of science to humanities is one of means to the ends. And if that science, which does not meet the end of making a better world, need not be taught. Our attempts at making the human life easier, simpler, better has to have values at its core. It cannot be a subject matter, it cannot be a kit, it cannot be a teacher of values, because every teacher in every subject in every classroom has to inculcate values in children. And that leads me to the question, how do we do it? I go back to Mahatma Gandhi, who said, you have to be the change you want to see in the world. In a relationship of love and compassion, it is the behavior of the teachers, it is the environment which will enable the child to pick up the values and ethics. I am not advocating any particular religion or any particular dogma, but there are 2 values, call them ethics, call them morals, which I subscribe to. 1, I will not take that which is not mine. If I have not earned it, it does not belong to me. And 2, I will not step on anybody's toes or harm anyone or anything for my personal gains. If we can just inculcate these two, I think a lot can be achieved. At the same time, it is not the words, it is the actions, it is the demeanor which will carry. And as Emerson says, who you are shouts so loud in my ears that I cannot hear what you say. Words get subsumed under actions, under behavior. The subliminal messaging that the child picks up. It is then incumbent upon us, it is our core responsibility and duty to live a life which can be emulated. Teachers must train the child by their own behavior. At the same time, one of my students who has submitted a PhD, a thesis on this very topic, also has identified, Manish Srivastav has identified in his thesis, that perhaps the best approach to value education is storytelling. But these stories have to be from real life, not mythology. Mythology is important, religion is important. At the same time, children have to relate to real life stories, real human beings, people around them. Can we create an environment where children find their own ideals? We are facing a difficulty not because of the negative people, but the world is becoming a difficult place because of the silence of the positive people. The hottest place in hell is reserved for those men who in moments of moral crisis refuse to take sides and appear to be neutral. Can we inculcate in our children the courage of conviction, the courage to take a stand, the courage to face adversity? And can we also teach them to be emotionally intelligent, to be able to see their own behavior patterns and manage it? Yes, of course, etiquettes are important, social norms are important, but they can be faked. As Stephen Covey suggests, and he talks about the personality ethic and the character ethic. You can fake behavior, but sooner or later your character will show up. And he suggests, ignore the personality, work on the character, work on your own character, and the teachers have to work on their own character in order to be able to train the children in working on their character. Is this difficult? Of course it is difficult, but we are teachers. Over the last 36 years of my career as a teacher, I have found that it did not matter very much as to what was transacted in the classroom, but what mattered a lot more what was transacted outside the classrooms. Formal education, yes, it has to have its milestones, it has to have its exams, assessments, certificates, gradations. And when I look back at my age, at my school alumni, there is a very poor correlation between the marks we got, the position we got, and how we performed in life. There is also a very poor correlation between the amount of money we earned and the degree of happiness we achieved. There is a very poor correlation between what we thought was important and what actually happened in our life. Yes, of course, your education will stay with you, your badges will stay with you, but what will stay with you is what you deliver. People will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but they will remember how we made them feel. Can we train our children to be sensitive to one another, to be team players, to cooperate and not compete, and above all, to be good human beings? Is this difficult? Sure it is, but that is what we are supposed to be. We are teachers, we can do it. Thank you very much.